Hi, hello, everyone. It's Choose Compassion here, and welcome. Today, I just wanted to explore how division is created within cities, towns, could be your home, anywhere, but just in general, how people, certain people, tend to gain power for themselves by creating division among other people. And we know that history repeats itself, and we also know that a lot of the times we have to come to the same solutions over and over and over and over again before we realize that, oh my goodness, this was not the way to go. So I wanted to go back to an old movie called Don't Be a Sucker. And because although this movie was surrounding the Nazis and really racism and fascists and a lot of different things, again, this was 1947, I believe. And it's just fascinating to see how history continues to repeat itself and just really to figure out what can we do to alter the course of this time loop that we seem to be going through. So, without further ado, I just wanted to present. Okay, wait. So, first, we are operating under fair use. This is actually has been sent around as an educational video. So we are going to do everything that we can not to get copyrighted. And um, please don't strike us because this is for educational purposes only as it has been used before. We are just applying this because this was made in 1947 to 2024 to our own. It could be political experiences, personal experiences, it could be public experiences, things that you find that you encounter with strangers. But our goal again today is just to talk about how division is created and how we hopefully can be quicker in the future, as this is getting close to being 100-year-old movie, how we can be just a lot quicker in trying to find solutions rather than staying in the mess and the madness.
This looks like a fake, doesn't it? Well, it is a fake. But here's a fella who's willing to bet his hard-earned money on it. Henry here got on the train with $200. He couldn't see any harm in a friendly game of cards. What if the other men were strangers? And take Joe Collins. He's got a nice wife at home. But he met this girl at the bar, and she looked kind of cute after the first couple of drinks. There's a good old-fashioned word for people like this. We call them suckers. And there are other people who stay up nights figuring out how to take away what they've got. There are all kinds of games and all kinds of suckers. Take Mike here, for instance. He's got everything, you might say. He's young, he's healthy, he's got a job. And he's got a country called America.
Okay, let's stop there because that was a lot in just a little bit of time. There are different people, different scenarios. Some people stay up at night thinking about how to take things from people. And what came to my mind was 2024 and social media. You know, there was no social media in 1947, but here in 2024, as I, look around, as we all look, there are people online night and day on any social media platform. Someone is typing. So, that being said, let's continue.
It's a wonderful thing to have. America. Lots of room. Room enough to raise plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big country. And people. Lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines, and run the business. All kinds of people. People from different countries with different religions, different colored skins. Free people. They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they pleased, go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America.
Now, that could be America, it could be a family, it could be anything, anything at all.
But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I want to give you the truth, folks. The truth about America. I know you've got a lot of questions. You want to know why you're not getting the breaks you deserve. Well, I'm not a politician, but I've made it my business to study these things, and I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign accents making all the money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
Yes, he knows all right.
What's the answer?
You hear that? So, this kind, elder person is saying, wow, I've heard this talk before. Never thought I'd hear it here in America. Now, again, we could apply that to America, our personal families, our communities in general, whatever they may look like, our church communities, you know what I mean? Your community outside, your karaoke community. I mean, let's look at these attitudes here. Now, this is one man's attitude, and that elder said, oh, he knows what he's doing. Oh, he knows.
What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church. Now, friends, these books are free. Paid for by real Americans who want others to know the truth.
Excuse me, young man, but are you actually going to read that stuff?
Sure, why not? You heard what he said, didn't you?
Yes, I heard. Do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
I'm speaking to you as an American. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these
Masons?
people.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason.
Okay, you see? You see? So now we're getting into, it sounds good, it makes sense. And then now you're narrowing that down, narrowing it down. Oh, the black people, the Negroes, the the Freemasons, and now he's even looking after he said, oh, makes sense to me. He's even looking like, wait a minute, what's wrong with the Freemasons? So is he going, is this man in particular, is he going to be like, okay, I don't, that I know that's not true about the Freemasons because I'm a Freemason? Or is that gentleman on the podium going to somehow convince him to question his own reality? I mean, when you think about how that happens here in 2024, it's mind blowing.
Hey, that fellow's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people, all of us.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us, made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you.
Now, right there, that's bars. Remember, somebody's gonna get something out of it. Prejudices. That was like the most powerful thing that you could tell somebody. And if you don't take anything else from this movie, those lines right there, I will put it in the description. At least for me, it resonated.
This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all true Aryan Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman. Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated. And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There will be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There will be no secrecy about path in the new Greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him, they promised everything, and he fell for it.
You who are true.
Do that sound like anybody that's ever been through anything or anyone that you watched go through something where people are just promising them things and it's just, you're going to get this and that. It could be behind the scenes. It could be out in front of everybody. But look at him. So they give him a uniform.
The little fellow ought to work anymore. He was a member of the master race. His wife couldn't quite understand. Even though he was a Superman, there wasn't any food in the house. Stupid woman. Didn't she realize that the Nazis were going to make jobs for everybody? There would be plenty of food and clothing and a new house. Everything they wanted. The glorious future of Germany was to be theirs. And
I think, now this is where I think this resonates within a lot of communities, within even our family systems. It's like we just continue to do and do and do and do at the detriment of ourselves, our families, depending on what resonates with you, our jobs. It just takes from you. And so he's like, oh no, all this is going to pay off after I do, what these people want me to do. They done promised me all this stuff. Now, here in 2024, you get your money up front. If you're going to do whatever, get your money up front now because, I don't know if they didn't have contracts or something back then, but see, people just fall victim and just start supporting a certain propaganda that's going around, a certain rumor. And here, if they were able to do all this and have a whole movement like this without social media, come on now, this is a dangerous thing when we start to represent people and we start to be like, yeah, no, I vouch to the death of me on stuff that you don't have all the details about. That makes no sense. But let's continue.
children would someday rule the world. But his wife, silly woman, still wondered where the next meal was coming from. Hans didn't like that kind of talk. It was dangerous. For that kind of talk, people should be put in jail.
See, that's another thing. Can't speak against nobody. If people don't want you to speak your truth, that's never a problem. Come on now.
Power? Of course not. So they could come to power. They would merely use Hans to help them get there. He would do the dirty work for them. Hans and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done. There were trade unions to be smashed, because unions were organized and might offer resistance. There were many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed. They were determined to smash every organization where people might band together and resist them. There were Jews to be beaten and killed. The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills. And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store. Hundreds of Catholics were put in jail because the Catholic Church had strength and could resist the Nazi drive for power. They had split the nation into 100 pieces. And then one by one, they had destroyed the pieces. Over these broken pieces, the Nazis rode into power. One party, one nation, one religion.
Wow. So they did all of this, destroy all the most powerful people. Now, we all know that the Catholic Church, they definitely held the power, still do to this day, 2024. But what I'm noting is how when people cause division, they tend to start striking the people that are in solidarity by any means necessary, and added on to this type of behavior that evolved throughout years and years and years after this. 2024 we're dealing with the same thing. You see the police, okay, you know what I mean? I don't really want to go into anything specific because I want people to take it however it resonates with them. If it resonates with you politically, then think about the division. If it resonates within your community or any community that you are a part of, where people are causing division to be, whether it's powerful or whether it's even to be the popular one, because a lot of times in this day and age, it's a popularity contest, and it's, the gain is clicks and likes and approval by others, whether it's genuine or not. But let's continue with this, because this is just a very powerful movie. It's so powerful.
These men had won their struggle for power. They now ruled all of Germany. But still they had trouble with their oldest and most persistent enemy, the truth. They found that truth does not die easily. And so they decided to abolish truth. One great source of truth is literature. So they burned books, 20 million of them. Many great men in Germany who were spokesmen for truth were jailed or driven from their country. Teachers, writers, scientists. Education was discouraged. In 5 years, college attendance dropped 53%. It was forbidden to...
So none of that sounds familiar. People don't try to humiliate people on the internet, try to drive them out of their towns, their cities, their states. I mean, you can't watch movies. There's certain things you can't do. I mean,
watch Joe Louis fight because the champion had black skin. He disproved Hitler's theory of Nordic supremacy. Albert Einstein, one of the world's great scientists, disproved that theory too. He was non-Aryan, so he had to leave Germany. His mind was dedicated to the search for truth, and the Nazis, having sold a lie, were most afraid of truth. The church was one force in Germany still strong enough to proclaim the truth in public.
No doubt is possible that we Christians are in a grave battle. Against us stands a faith out of blood. The battle signals range from cool repudiation to hate-filled causes. Weapons are used that centuries have dulled. The aim of this battle is to dislodge Christianity from our fatherland.
This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of immorality. The Protestant church also continued to try and fight for truth.
He who desires liberty for himself cannot deny it to others, lest he lose what he has gained.
Does that sound familiar? In any type of way, black sheep of the family, if we're talking familial relationships, communities, whether that's a friend group in real life or on the internet, You start speaking truth, people don't like it, and they try to cover it up. But I wanted to stop there because they mentioned the Nordic theory. And that's really based on an idea that people can only form healthy relationships when they're autonomous. Physically, you know what I mean? Economically, it's just it's a theory that, you know, help people achieve independence. And this is what I've talked about in my other videos about being able to survive regardless of who's in power. And that's anywhere. So, you know, it's like you want to be part of a society that helps rebuild, helps work together, not one that causes division against the people that you have to either physically live in quarters with, physically live in proximity to, uh, people that are in power in different social settings. It could be a high schooler and the parents, and you're dealing with an administration. So, and it could be also political power. So, I just really wanted to look at this from all angles. How, again, however this resonates with you, but it's just something funny about, you know, the truth when people want to expose the truth. That seems to come with more of an attack than perpetuating the lie or being silent. But again, this Nordic theory, if you guys, anybody is interested in that, it's, you know, all about like individual freedom and equality and how to work together to create a better society within whatever societal or environmental constraints that you may live in. You want to be independent in that space. You want to be able to be free and not just follow along to get along if that's not how you feel. But then there's also ways to do that, and we'll cover that next. But this one is mostly about division, exposing truth. Why are people more afraid of the truth? Why people are so willing to perpetuate, I don't even want to say perpetuate a lie. I will say for some, it's perpetuating a lie. And then for others, it's going on information that you don't know to be true, but then you're perpetuating that. And that back in the day, it was via literature and, you know, word of mouth. And so now everything gets disseminated thousands and thousands of times quicker with social media. So even when people want to expose the truth, now you have some people coming without even being able to speak for themselves because of what they heard. And so now you're coming for someone based on their thoughts, their beliefs, when you can just ignore it. But again, the behaviors outside of this is for our next video.
This is the great lesson the world can learn from Germany.
The Nazis put this man in a concentration camp. There were others who spoke for truth, and I am proud to say that educators were among them.
And what, may I ask, is an Aryan? I don't know myself. But let us see what our present so-called authorities have to say about it. They say he is tall, slender, blue-eyed, and blonde. There is no Aryan race. And more important, there is no master race. There are people who may find these ideas convenient, but science cannot support them. There is no scientific proof that there's any correlation between a man's racial characteristics and his native ability or character. In all racial groups, we find the same range of potentialities. We find idiots and geniuses. We find criminals and philanthropists. We must judge each man as an individual and not by the color of his skin or his eyes or by the length of his nose.
Now, I tend to think, let's not judge at all because everything is about perspective. So,
There are many differences between individuals. We each have different capabilities, different backgrounds, different views about what's right and what's wrong. Like the difference between me and these gentlemen who have just arrived. But that is not the difference in race. It is a difference in the way we think. Remember that. And remember that there is no master race. That is a scientific truth. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
you see,
For all practical purposes, truth had been abolished in Germany. A lot of my German friends wondered what had hit them. How did it happen? Where did it start? It started right here. And this was where it could have been stopped. If those people had stood together, if they had protected each other, they could have resisted the Nazi threat. Together they would have been strong. But once they allowed themselves to be split apart, they were helpless. When that first minority lost out, everybody lost out. They made the mistake of gambling with other people's freedom. Now let's see how those bets paid off. Carl the farmer was gambling.
okay, before we see how all that paid off, do you hear what could have been done? Instead of everyone looking around at each other, it was at the moment that somebody came and started saying something that sounded good to certain people, didn't sound good to other people. And so, based on differences of opinions, something that could have been stopped right there in this moment went on to abolish all truth in Germany per this movie. That's not being done in politics, in communities, in social groups, in our homes to a degree. Not everybody's home, but I'm just saying, like, people can resonate with telling the truth and speaking up for the truth, and just it's a shame how that's looked at as something that is wrong. But again, it's 2024, so in 2024 all liars will be exposed, whether you like it or not. It's 2024. Cat Williams said that.
On a better life for himself. What he got was extra hours of back-breaking work, as much as 100 hours a week. He was forced to stay on his land and produce what he was told to produce, because now Hitler was preparing for war. For Heinrich, who owned a hardware store, the bet didn't pay off either. 104,000 small businesses were closed in 2 years. And for Hans, conditions hadn't improved any. He had a job now in the munitions factory, but he worked long hours for little pay. The working conditions grew increasingly bad. And even though he didn't like the job, he wasn't permitted to leave it. There still wasn't enough food in his house. Hitler said you couldn't have butter and cannon. So Hans couldn't have butter. And when Hitler decided the time was right, Germany went to war. Not by declaring war, but by a carefully prepared sneak attack. Once again, Hitler needed Hans to do his dirty work. Hans was an expert at brutality by this time, and Hitler had decided to use Hans and his brutality against other peoples, the Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Russians. But
Okay, I do want to shout out Dalton, wake up.
in the crucial test of war, Hitler's race theories didn't pay off. His pure-blooded supermen were defeated by the mongrel armies he despised, by the British at El Alamein, by the Russians at Stalingrad.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? All of this fighting is because of one man's vision. It's wild.
Who had swallowed the Nazi bait, the Nazi game did not pay off. The continent of Europe was strewn with millions of German bodies, pure Aryan bodies. Karl, the farmer, was left in the snow outside of Moscow. Heinrich stayed in Italy at Salerno. And Hans, who was going to rule the world, got only a little patch of Normandy that he could call his own. We must never let that happen to us or to our country. We must never let ourselves be divided by race or color or religion, because in this country we all belong to minority groups. I was born in Hungary. You are a Mason. These are minorities. And then you belong to other minority groups too. You are a farmer. You have blue eyes. You go to the Methodist Church. Your right to belong to these minorities is a precious thing. You have a right to be what you are and say what you think, because here we have personal freedom. We have liberty. And these are not just fancy words. This is a practical and priceless way of living. But we must work at it. We must guard everyone's liberty, or we can lose our own. If we allow any minority to lose its freedom by persecution or by prejudice, we are threatening our own freedom. And this is not simply an ideal. This is good, hard common sense. You see, here in America, it's not a question whether we tolerate minorities. America is minorities. And that means you and me. So let's not be suckers. We must not allow the freedom or dignity of any man to be threatened by any act or word. Let's be selfish about it. Let's forget about we and they. Let's think about us.
So I don't know how that movie related or resonated with you. I would like to know. Please comment below whether it was personal, it gave you some insight politically, or just personally. But for me, I wanted to give my opinion just overall. I think the professor in the movie was just really trying to explain the dangers of falling for anything that people say, things that you see on the internet that you don't know to be true, but promotes any type of hate or discrimination. I think he was warning against being manipulated by people who seek to exploit other people's fears and prejudices for their own gain, or whether they are doing that, being enlisted to support someone else's gain. It's just, these are things that we need to look at before we start talking. What are the things that we are saying rooted in things that we know to be true, or are we just saying something that another person said? Like in 2024, there's still individuals, still groups who use information, all this inflammatory language, just to sow discord and division in communities and society. So I think that the professor's message it just really serves as a reminder to critically evaluate the information that we consume. We need to question our own biases and really strive for unity and understanding rather than, being swayed by your hate or your fear of whatever it is. So that's what I think. And overall, I know although compassion is free, it is not the easiest thing to do or to give. It's like working a muscle in your body. You do it little by little, but you keep trying. You keep trying to be more compassionate. And lastly, there is a healthy habit that I love, and that one, and it's not even just a healthy habit. It's it's a saying. It's a mantra to live by. It's it's in your Bible. If you read the Bible, it's said in different ways, but just as a healthy habit, seek to understand others as you. I'm not even going to say before because some people just can't handle the before, but seek to understand others as you would like them to understand what you have to say. And remember that what you say, what I say, what the next person says, it's all about perspective. It it doesn't need to be attacked. It can be discussed. It should be discussed. If we were all the same, this would be a boring life. So, with that, choose compassion, and until next time, we will delve into the behaviors, different behaviors, and just how they affect not only us internally, but the people around us. So, till next time, bye.